Hello everyone, welcome to this session. So today we are going to talk about introduction to virtual private cloud, that is VPC. Before starting with the session, let me introduce myself. I am Jatin Goyal and I am an AWS authorized instructor. Regarding the certifications I'm holding in AWS, so I have all three associate level certifications I'm holding along with a cloud practitioner. I'm also data analytics specialty certified and I am an AWS authorized instructor. I'm also holding restart accredited instructor tag. If you want to connect me, you can connect me over the LinkedIn. So this is a QR code. You can scan the QR code and you will be reaching out to me over the LinkedIn. Now let's see the agenda. Like what's the agenda we are going to cover as a part of this particular session. So in the agenda, first of all, I will give you the overview of virtual private cloud. Then we'll talk about architecture diagram of VPC, how the flow will be there. We'll create a custom VPC in AWS account. Then we will launch an EC2 instance in a custom VPC and we will test the connectivity to the EC2 instance. So this will be the agenda, end-to-end agenda for this particular session. Now, before we start anything, the first question which comes into our mind, that is why we are studying this. So right now, I'm talking about virtual private cloud. So we should have an idea upon that what this virtual private cloud is and does it belongs to a particular category. So when we start our journey in AWS, like we see that AWS provides us different categories of services. We have services under compute category, we have services under storage category, we have services under databases, and lot more categories are available. If you want to see that, I can quickly help you out. So we'll go to management console. In the management console, this is the first section, services section, where you can see all these categories. And under all these categories, the services will be listed. So today we are talking about a category called networking. Okay, because VPC belongs to networking. VPC will be a part of networking. You can see it here. Now, when we design any application, any system, there are some fundamental services which are required. So storage is one of them, computing is one of them, networking is one of them, databases will be there. These services basically form the end-to-end architecture. So if I have to put networking in simple way, I can say networking provides us integration, networking provides us interconnection, networking provides us so that different resources as a part of your architecture can communicate with each other. And which service is serving our need in AWS? That is VPC. So VPC is providing us a logically isolated network. Okay. Now you can read it in the official documentation which is available in the AWS. You can see it here that virtual private cloud enable you to launch AWS resources into a virtual network that you have defined. So here we are getting an isolated space. Here we are getting an isolated network where we can set up our infrastructure. Why there is a need to set up an infrastructure in the isolated space? Think it in a way, I'm working for an IT company and my day-to-day job is I'm dealing with multiple environments. I'm dealing with multiple applications. Those applications have different configuration requirement. Those applications have different requirement in terms of infrastructure. So why not to isolate those applications so that they can operate in their individual network space, which has been designed for them. Okay. So VPC provide us the virtual network. Now, one thing you need to keep in your mind that what are the several components which will be available as a part of a VPC that we are going to discuss as we will proceed further. Okay. But you will be happy to know that like when you create your account in AWS always provide you with a default VPC. Because first thing what we do when we launch our AWS account, we always go to the EC2 dashboard and we see how to launch our first EC2 instance. But have you ever tried that when you launch an EC2 instance, there is a section called networking section, and we usually keep it default. So from where those default values come from? Those default values come from the default VPC which has been created by VPC at the time of account creation. It has been created by AWS when we had created or set up our account. Okay. You can also see it here. So currently I'm in a Mumbai region. This is my geographical location, which I have chosen to set up my infrastructure. And I am into a VPC. You all know how to search for a VPC. You can simply type VPC in the search bar. That is a one way by which you can come to VPC. You can expand this services section. Again, I had told you one of the possibility, if you are aware about the categorization that VPC belongs to which service category, you can choose that service category and you can go from there too. Next possibility you can have, that is under all services, you can see you will have a services alphabetically. So you can go from there too. So whatever way you find that is convenient for you, you can choose to search for a particular service. What I usually do, I type the name of the service in search bar, which I have done just now in front of you. So VPC is here. I can click and I will be landed to the VPC dashboard. In the VPC dashboard, these all are the sections you can see: your VPC, subnets, route table, internet gateway. About some of the component we are going to talk about in our this session. So let me go to your VPCs, and here you can see the first VPC with a default VPC column as yes, means this is a default VPC. So whichever service you are launching as a part of a network, if you are not editing or if you are not providing any custom setting, then by default the default setting will be chosen, the default setting will be taken care of. Okay, so we will launch our first custom VPC. Before launching our custom VPC, what are the things, what are the pointers we have to keep in our mind? The first pointer is VPC a regional service or a global service? So the answer to this question is VPC a regional service. You need to select a particular region, a geographical location in which you have to provision your custom VPC. So for this particular demonstration, I have chosen Mumbai, which is AP South 1, as my region where I am going to launch the custom VPC. Okay. Now you have got an idea that VPC is a custom VPC which we are going to launch, and it is a regional service. So I have chosen here Mumbai region, AP South 1. Okay. Again, you can have one question that what will be the quotas? Is there any specific quotas? Let's say when I'm launching a VPC, do I need to take care that these many VPCs I can launch as a part of my infrastructure, or these many components I can create under the VPC? So for that, the best place to know that is VPC quotas. You can simply type that and it will take you to the Amazon VPC quotas official documentation where you can see the quotas here. So if I will talk about VPCs per region, so the default value is 5, but it is adjustable. Adjustable means it's not a hard limit. You can submit a request to AWS and AWS will increase your limit based on the justification you are giving, that for what purpose you need to provision more VPC as a part of your infrastructure. Okay. Next thing which we have to take care in our mind, that whenever you are defining a network, there will be a network space you will have to define. There will be a set of IP addresses you will have to define. Okay. So in AWS, whenever we define a VPC, we talk about a network space in terms of CIDR block, classless inter-domain routing. Okay. So how we have to choose a CIDR block for a VPC, that information we can get from here. So we need to follow RFC 1918 standard, and these are some of the ranges which we can follow in order to create a network space. Okay. So you can create a VPC with a public routable CIDR block that falls outside of the private IPv4 addresses ranges specified in the RFC 1918. So you have both options. Either you can follow these private ranges which has been specified here, or if you want to design a VPC with a network space outside this range, that also you can choose. Okay. Let's go back and let's create a custom VPC. So I'm clicking on create VPC here. Okay. You have two options. Either you can go for VPC only, or either you can go for VPC and more. As we will see each component one by one. So let's go for VPC. So I'm giving a name, demo custom VPC. And then I am choosing a CIDR block as IPv4 CIDR block. I'm going to manually provide the input. You can also choose this option, IPAM allocated IPv4 CIDR block. And if you want to read further info about it, you can see it from here. Okay. So you can specify an IPv4 CIDR block for your VPC. If there is an Amazon VPC IP address manager address pool available in this region, you can get a CIDR from the IPAM pool. So this is an IPv4 address manager. Basically, you can say it's a VPC IP address manager which you can make use of in order to get the CIDR block if it is available. But I'm going to provide a CIDR block manually. So I'm choosing the one from this particular range. Okay. So I am using a CIDR block as 10.0.0.0/16. This will be my CIDR block. This will be my network space. Okay. I'm not launching my VPC in a dual mode. I'm only using IPv4, which is an Internet Protocol version 4. Okay. A 32-bit IP address represented in a numerical form. Okay. So if I will scroll down, I can see I am creating a VPC. So VPC is created. The custom VPC is created. What's next? So next is a question can come into a picture that what will be the default component which comes with the VPC? Currently, I have created only a VPC. So is there any default component which will be there with this VPC? The answer is yes. And what is that? We have a route table. Okay. We have a route which is associated with this VPC. That is a route table. Let's understand the architecture flow and we will get a clear idea that what all components we are going to create as a part of this particular session. Okay. So let me help you out with the architecture diagram. So this is the architecture flow I have taken. Here, if you will see, this is my AWS and this VPC is a regional service. So I have launched a VPC in a region. For my demonstration, I have chosen a region as AP South 1. And this is a CIDR space, okay, or a CIDR block. So for me, the CIDR block which I have taken, that is 10.0.0.0/16. This is my CIDR block. Okay. Now inside a VPC, you can have multiple availability zone because we know that region is a collection of 2 or more availability zone. So these are different availability zone. Let's say this is AG1 and this is your AG2. Okay. Now we are doing a further classification, that is subnetting. You have defined a network space, a virtual network. Inside that network, I am creating partitions in terms of subnet. Why subnet is required if we have this question in our mind? The very simple answer is subnet is required for the security purpose. In what context? Let's see that. Let's take a very simple example. If I am drawing an architecture here, a 2-tier architecture, where I have this DB tier. This is my DB tier. And this particular tier is a web tier where my web application is exposed. Okay. And here a client is making a request to my web tier. So now if someone will ask me, should I allow the direct access to a database from the request coming at the client side? My answer will be no. Why? Because this database is containing some confidential information. So it's always recommended to keep this database isolated from your web tier. Okay. So here, if I have to conclude, I can say that I need to isolate the resources in terms of public and private. Some resources need the direct interaction over the internet, but some resources doesn't need the direct interaction over the internet. They will have to interact over the internet indirectly. On the basis of that, I have created partitioning called public subnet and private subnet. So you can see it here. Public subnet means the resources which need direct interaction over the internet. Okay. And private subnet means the resources where the indirect interaction is required. So we are going to place all those resources in a private subnet which don't require direct interaction over the internet. Okay. Now we always believe in high availability because we want to plan for the disaster. If there will be any interruption, we should have a setup ready that we can switch our pointers to the next availability zone. That is also a feature of the AGs. So that's why I have done my setup into 2 AGs here. In each AG, I have created one public subnet and one private subnet. You can see that. Okay. We have another component which you can see here, that is internet gateway. What this internet gateway is? It is a gateway to communicate over the internet. Means all the traffic to the internet will go via internet gateway. That is our internet gateway. And if you will see this NAT component stands for network address translation. So it will act as a gateway when you have to redirect a traffic from private subnet to internet, or you have to initiate an indirect communication from the private subnet to the internet. NAT will come into picture. So these are the components which exist in a VPC, and this is the architecture flow diagram. One thing we have to keep in our mind, that is a route table. What this route table does, it defines the route. Means what is a target and what is a destination. where we want to reach and what we want to target in order to reach out to the destination. Okay. So a simple question is, whenever you launch a VPC always comes up with a main route table. There will be a route table associated with a VPC, and that route table will have an entry. Let's see that. Let's go back quickly to management console. And here, if I'll go to my VPCs, if I will select this custom VPC ID, let's take this and let's go to route tables. Okay. So in a route table, one thing is that you can filter it on the basis of a VPC. So I'm doing that. And it has presented one route table here in the dashboard. If you want, you can rename it. You can say demo custom VPC route table, something like that for your understanding. Okay. So it's up to you. If you want to make it for the better understanding, you can provide a tag, because tagging is one of the strategy which can be used to manage the resources better. Okay. If you will see the entries in this particular route table, just go to routes. And inside routes, you can see here that we have a default entry in a target and destination column. The destination is including my VPC cider space, which I had taken, and target is local. Means by default, traffic can be redirected locally. Resources inside a VPC can interact with each other. So that's why destination, they have taken the entire cider block and target is local. Okay. So that is my route table, which comes by default with a VPC, and it is known as a main route table. Let's create the subnet for the VPC. So I'm going to create two subnet, one public subnet and one private subnet. Okay. So initially, we will not give any name to a subnet. Initially, we'll create two subnet and we will see a strategy on the basis of what ground you will decide that this subnet is a public subnet. Okay. So let's click on create subnet. Inside create subnet, first of all, you will have to choose a VPC for which you are going to create a subnet or you want to create a subnet. So I'm choosing a custom VPC. Okay. In a subnet setting, I'm saying my custom VPC subnet 1. Okay. You are free to give any name you want. That is up to you. So this is subnet 01. Availability zone, you can define the AGs. If you will see here, in Mumbai region, we have all these availability zone: AP South 1A, AP South 1B, AP South 1C. So it's up to you. If you want to create a subnet in an availability zone of your choice, you can do that. Otherwise, you can keep this option as no preference. Now, let me give you the IPv4 cider block for this subnet. So here can be a question. The question can be, subnet are the partitions in a VPC. They are the subset of a VPC. But can a VPC and a subnet have the same cider space? If this question is coming, if I have to give the answer, I will say the answer is yes. A subnet and a VPC can have the same cider block. How? Think in that way. If you're dealing with a single web server which is hosting an application, in that case, the subnet and the VPC can have a same cider block, because you only have one subnet and inside that subnet you have created one resource. So you can allocate the entire cider block to that particular public subnet. Okay. So I'm providing a IPv4 cider block. Let's say I'm saying 10.0.0.0/24. It is a subset of my primary cider which has been allocated to my custom VPC. Okay. Right now, I'm not allocating the entire cider to this subnet, because here in my scenario, in the demonstration which I am going to show you, I am going to create two subnet, one public, one private. Okay. Let's go ahead. Let's add new subnet. You can give a name like you had given here, my custom VPC subnet 01. Here you can mention my custom VPC subnet 02. Okay. This you can mention here. Availability zone, again, it's up to you. Do you want to give any preference or do you want to go ahead with a no preference? Okay. Let me show you one more thing. Let me give the same cider to this subnet too. Okay. And now let's try to create a subnet. What will happen? I'm getting an error. What's the error? The error says cider address overlaps with existing subnet cider. So it concludes, when you are creating subnets in a VPC, two subnets can't have an overlapping cider. They should have a different cider block. So let's make it different. Okay. So I am creating a cider block like this. I'm choosing this and I'm creating a subnet. So two subnets associated with this VPC got created. So we have a route table, we have the subnets, and we have a custom VPC. Now you have to keep this thing in your mind that each subnet is associated with a route table. There will be a route table associated with each subnet you are creating. Okay. If you are not creating any custom route table, till that time, the main route table will be associated with all your subnets you have created as a part of a VPC. You can see that too. If I will select any of the subnet, let me select the one, my custom VPC. If you will go to a route table, it is a main route table which is associated with my custom VPC, and it has an entry in a destination, the CIDR space of a VPC, and in target local means locally resources can interact with each other, or in a VPC we can allow the resources to interact with each other. Similar thing will be there for the another subnet. Okay, you can see there will be a route table associated with this subnet, and that will be the main route table. Okay. One way, if you want to see the resources specific to a VPC only, the best idea is just select that VPC, copy the VPC ID, and use it as a filter. So now if you will go to subnet, if you will use it as a filter, it will only show you the list of subnets associated with this VPC. Okay. Let's launch our EC2 instance. That was the next agenda, because we have seen what VPC is. We have discussed about VPC component. We have created a custom VPC. We have created two subnets in a VPC. Now let's launch an EC2 instance. So for launching an EC2 instance, let's go to EC2 dashboard. I am opening an EC2 dashboard here. This is my EC2 dashboard. From here, you can go to instances running, and you can simply click on launch instances. Once this dashboard will be uploaded. Okay. So you know that there are several ways. Again, you can type EC2 in the search bar. You can go as per the service category. You can go alphabetically, whatever you want. Okay. Let me launch instance. So this is a new console, new experience, which has been provided to you by AWS. Okay. So we are going to use this. Let's give a name called web server. This is the name I'm giving. In the applications and OS images, I'm choosing the one which is under free tier eligibility, because if you are practicing some services in AWS, you know that you have an advantage. You can have free tier account where you can make use of certain quotas in order to explore the services available in AWS. So I'm choosing Amazon Linux. Again, if I scroll down in the instance type, I'm choosing T2.micro. Okay. Now, next section, we have a key pair. What is key pair associated with EC2? So key pair is basically used for the secure login. Let's say if I have to connect to my EC2 instance using SSH via PuTTY or any external client, I will need a key pair. So let's do one thing. Let's create a key pair. I'm creating a new key pair. Let me give a name. Let's say demo custom VPC key pair, something like that. Okay. And I am downloading the PEM file. Let me create a key pair. It will download a file in a local machine. Here you can see we have a network settings. Okay. So in network settings, currently they have taken a default VPC, the one which had been created by AWS at the time of account creation. You can edit this setting anytime. Just click on edit. I'm going to choose demo custom VPC because this is the customized VPC I have created. In this subnet info, you have two subnets available. Now, what is my requirement? What I am going to do as a part of this demonstration, I will launch a subnet, or I will create this EC2 instance in a public subnet. But then we have a question. I haven't defined yet which is a public, which is a private. So let's do one thing. Let's choose any of the subnet you want, and later we will make that subnet public. So my requirement is the EC2 instance which will be launched, that should be publicly accessible. Okay, that should be accessible over the internet. So let's take my custom VPC subnet 01. You can take any one of your choice. Okay. By default, for the security reason, this public IP will be disabled. So as I want to make this EC2 instance to be accessible over the internet, so let me enable this public IP address, which I have done. Okay. Then we have security group, which acts as a virtual firewall. So this security group can help you out in order to decide what kind of traffic is allowed to your EC2 instance. What I am going to do, I am going to do SSH to my EC2 instance in order to test the connectivity from my custom VPC. So I am going to create a security group. Let's give a name. Let's say demo custom VPC SG. Any name you can give of your choice. Okay. This is just a name. I'm just taking from my choice. As per your choice, you can give a name. Okay. So I'm saying demo custom VPC SD stands for security group. Okay. In a security group rule, if you will scroll down, I am allowing the SSH from anywhere. For demonstration purpose, I'm allowing the SSH from anywhere. If you want to restrict it, you can restrict that too. Okay. Let's scroll down. I'm not changing any storage configuration. I'm keeping it default. So there will be a root volume which will be attached to your EC2 instance. Under advanced detail, again, we have a lot more things which you can make use of, but I'm not going to use any advanced detail. You can also pass some user data, some configuration scripts. Let's say if you have to install something, if you have to launch something on your EC2 instance, you can do that. We will do it after logging to our EC2 instance. Okay. Let's scroll down and click on launch instance. Okay. The instance will be up and running soon. Let's wait for the instance status to come up and running. You can go here. It will open a new tab. And here you can see the status of your EC2 instances. If you want, you can refresh it. So currently the instance state is in pending. So soon it will be up and running. Let's wait for the instance state to change from pending to running. It's running very quick. Okay. So that's one of the advantage also in AWS or cloud computing, that you can provision your resources in minutes with a click of few buttons, okay, which you were not able to do in the on-premises or the traditional business, okay. Let me select this and let's go to connect. So now when I will go to connect, there are several options. We have EC2 instance connect, we have session manager, we have SSH client, we have EC2 serial console. I am going to use EC2 instance connect. It will open a terminal in the browser which will allow me to connect to my EC2 instance. Let's try that. Let's click on connect and let's see what will happen. So we will wait for the screen to be loaded and come up and running. Okay. But let's see, are we going to get any error or are we going to get a successful connection? There is an error. What's the error? We were unable to connect to your instance. Make sure that your instance network settings are configured correctly for the EC2 instance connect. If that is the case, if it is complaining about network setting, the first thing which you should do, you should check your security group. Is your security group consisting the proper configurations which you had to allow? Let's do that. So I'm going back. Let me click on cancel and I will select this EC2 instance. I'll go to security. Under security, there is a security group I can just open. And in this security group, these are the inbound rules. So it is looking fine to me because I had to allow SSH from anywhere, which I have done. Now, what can be the issue? Because security group is looking fine to me. Let's try to go back to the resources which we have created, components which we have added as a part of a VPC. I created one custom VPC. I created two subnet and I configured those subnets. Okay, those subnets have the route table associated with them. But I have launched this EC2 instance and I want this EC2 instance to be accessible publicly. Okay, means this will be a part of public subnet. That's correct. But if you have to initiate any traffic to the internet, what is required? Internet gateway is required. That was one of the component of VPC. But we have not created the internet gateway yet. Let's do that. So go to VPC management console, and in VPC management console, you can click on internet gateways. Okay. You can create an internet gateway from here. Let's go there. Let's get internet gateway. So give a name, demo custom VPC IGW. IGW is a full form, or you can clearly mention internet gateway. You can define the tags. The default tag has been taken, name value. If you want to define another tag, you can do that and click on create internet gateway. The gateway got created, but you will have to associate this gateway to a VPC. And By default, at a time, one internet gateway can be attached to a VPC. Again, that you can see in the VPC quotas. Okay. If we'll go to VPC quotas, you can see that all these quotas are available here. Internet gateways per region. Okay. So you can read these quotas and you can go through it. Let me go back to my management console where I have created the internet gateway. I'm attaching it to a VPC. It can also be proved from here. I had a default VPC running in my AWS account, but it is showing me an option for demo custom VPC because at a time, one internet gateway can be attached to one VPC, and a default VPC already has an internet gateway attached. Let's select it and let's attach internet gateway. You can also do it via the command line. Okay. So it is showing you the command line interface command in order to attach an internet gateway. If you are using CLI, you can use this command to attach an internet gateway to your VPC. Okay. Let me click on attach internet gateway and it is done. Okay. What's next? Next thing is I will have to define the routes because gateway you have attached to a VPC, but you will have to define from where the traffic will be initiated because I have two subnet. I have a public subnet, I have a private subnet. And where we define routes, we define route in a route table. So let's create a route table, a custom route table for my VPC. So click on create route table. In a create route table, I'm saying demo custom route table, something like that. Okay. And I am selecting a VPC for which I'm creating this route table. So this is a demo custom VPC. Okay. Let's create a route table. So every route table which will be created as a part of a VPC, they will have a default entry with a destination and target. In destination, you will have the CIDR block of a VPC, and in target, it will be local. Okay. So let's take the route table ID. Okay. And what we are going to do, we are going to attach this route table to our public subnet. Okay. Because from public subnet, the traffic will be initiated in order to interact over the internet. So let's go to our subnet. Now it's your choice. You can take any of these subnet, my custom VPC subnet 01, subnet 02, and you can make it public. We will make it public. Let's see that how. Go to route table. Click on edit route table association. So I am going to attach a custom route table to this particular subnet. Okay. So we have two route table, demo custom route table, demo custom VPC route table. This is a main route table. Okay. And this one is a custom. We will change the name to make it more clear. Let me save it. Okay. For a better understanding, what we will do, we will see which is a main route table. This one is a main route table. Let's change it name. Demo main route table, something like that, just to avoid any confusion. And this is a demo custom route table. So what I have done this time, to my public subnet or to one of the subnet, I have attached a custom route table. Is that enough? I don't think so. Because if you will see these two route tables, there is same entry in both the route table. Then what is making one route table different from another? That is an entry for the internet gateway. Let's do that. So this is the one which we have created, a custom one. Go to routes. In the routes, if you will go to edit routes, what you have to do, you have to add a route. Your destination will be anywhere because you want to reach over the internet. So anywhere will be there, and the IP will be 0.0.0.0/0. This will be my CIDR. Okay. I have to select the IGW. IGW stands for Internet Gateway. Let me select Internet Gateway. And this is the ID which is associated with the Internet Gateway. Let's save the changes. Okay. We'll have to see one thing. We'll have to ensure one more thing. This is a custom route table. Okay. This route table is containing the entry of the Internet Gateway ID. So now if someone will ask me how I will identify which one is a public subnet, which one is a private subnet. So I will say I will identify that on the basis of entries in a route table. If route table is containing the entry for the internet gateway and If route table is containing that particular attachment for the internet gateway ID, means that is a route table associated with a subnet, and that subnet is known as a public subnet. We have to keep that thing in our mind. Okay, that's clear. So let's do one thing. Let's go to subnet. I have attached this route table to my custom VPC subnet 01. Okay. To this, I have attached this demo custom route table. Just to be at a safer side, I will also verify the EC2 instance which I have launched, that has been launched in which particular subnet. So let's go to EC2 management console. In the EC2 management console, if I'll go to EC2, here you can click on instances running. You can select it. You can go to security. Here you will see the settings for security group. Under networking, I will check for networking. So I can scroll down. I can see it is associated with my custom VPC subnet 01. So that was my goal. I wanted to launch this EC2 instance as a part of public subnet. And how I identified the public subnet? By the entry of internet gateway ID. Okay, let's connect again and let's see the magic. So you can select it. You can click on connect, scroll down, click connect again. And this time, this EC2 instance you will be able to connect with. Will you be? Yes, we are. So here we have connected to our EC2 instance. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to install an HTTPD server, and over that I will run an index.html. Okay, so that I can show you that I can access it from the internet. So let's do one thing. Let's quickly switch to our root user, which is sudo su. And then I am using a utility called yum. I'm installing HTTP. Yum install -y httpd. These are some Linux commands I am using in order to install HTTP server. How can we verify the status? You can simply type systemctl status httpd. Currently it is inactive. Let's make it active by executing a command start httpd. And I'm using another command called enable httpd. Okay. If you will check the status again, this time it is active and running. It's active and running. Okay. Next thing which we will do, we will create one index.html. And where we'll create an index.html? We'll have to move to this particular folder, where www.html, because here all the HTML files will be there. Okay. Now also, if you will see, you will be able to access a test page on the HTTP server. But for that, you will have to make one change. That is, you will have to add a rule in the security group, because here I'm going to access it over the browser. Okay. So in order to access it over the browser, I will have to enable HTTP. Okay. Let's do that. Let me select my instance. This is my EC2 instance. Let's select it. Go to security. Under security, I'm editing a security group inbound rules. Let's click on edit inbound rule. And here you can add a rule for HTTP. I'm making it from anywhere and saving the rule. You can also allow it from your particular IP address that you can manage. Okay. You can do it for the testing purpose, and then you can restrict it. Let's take the public IP and let's paste this public IP here in the browser. You will see a test page. The test page is here. Okay. If you want to upload any index.html file, you can do that. Let's get a simple index.html file. Or you can navigate to the already connected page. Let's do it very quickly. I already have HTTPD running. So what I will do, I will simply switch to this particular location, which is where www.html. Okay. And here I'm going to create an index.html file. Let's say this is my test file. Okay. And if you will date it, if you will load it, this time you can see a text. This is my text file. Okay. So this is how you can create a custom VPC and you can set up your infrastructure in a VPC. So I created one custom VPC. I created two subnets in a VPC. I launch my EC2 instance in one of the subnet, and then I attach an internet gateway to the subnet, to one of the subnet. So the internet gateway which had been attached to the subnet, that subnet is known as a public subnet. Okay. And then I tested the connectivity for my EC2 instance. So that was the demonstration I wanted to show you. Okay. Now, next thing is, let's say we want to know more about VPC. So best place to learn that, you can go to Amazon VPC FAQs. In this Amazon VPC FAQs, you can get a lot more information about VPC, like what is Amazon Virtual Private Cloud. If you have some question related to billing, related to connectivity, IP addressing, topology, security and filtering, all these things you will get it here. Okay. One more extra pointer which I want to help you out. That is, like when you create a VPC and when you create a subnet in a VPC, so by default, AWS reserves the 5 IP addresses in that subnet. If you want to see those reserved IP addresses, you can simply type here reserved IP addresses in AWS and it will open this. Okay. So here you can see the reserved IP addresses. It has been reserved for all these purposes. The first one will be reserved as a network address. The second one will be reserved by AWS for the VPC router. The third one will be reserved for a DNS server. The fourth one will be for the future use. And the final one will be for the network broadcasting address. Okay. So this is what I wanted to help you out as a part of demonstration on VPC. Hope you gained something from this session. Thanks a lot for being a part of this particular session. This is Jatin Goyal signing off. Thank you and bye-bye everyone.